Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Rewind Project. My name's Eric.
I'm Allie.
I'm Matt.
And we are heading back to 1958. So 65 years ago, the movie that we are going to discuss today is now eligible for Medicare. But first, let's kind of get ourselves...
Get some of the exchange. Don't do Medicare.
Let's get ourselves situated, shall we, in 1958. A couple things that happened then. The U.S. Supreme Court rules unanimously that Little Rock, Arkansas schools must integrate. Not that it did a lot of good.
Yeah, I mean symbolic, really.
Yeah, but at least, somebody said, hey, this is not constitutional. You're not allowed to do it and be super duper obvious about it.
That was Ruby Bridges, right?
I think, or is that Brown versus Board? Because that was like 54.
No, it is Little Rock because I just saw she was just on the news and she was like 69 or something like that. So yeah.
Yeah, and that horrible woman behind her who's screaming. Like they've eventually found her too, and she was embarrassed for being that person in history.
But I thought you were going to say she stormed the Capitol. That's not what I didn't think you were going to say. She was embarrassed.
No. I think she's kind of sick of seeing her teenage face. Like, this is the face of bigotry, and she's like, oh God. But you know what? Sometimes that's your purpose in life, is to be a horrible warning to others. The Munich air disaster occurs after a plane crashes carrying the Manchester United team, which is a big ass deal in the UK still to this day. I mean, we don't know about it as much here, but that was like a major heartbreaking event for folks in our friends across the pond. Egypt and Sudan got together to form the United Arab Republic in 58.
Sure.
Wow. Okay.
The Broadway musical My Fair Lady opened in London with Rex Harrison as Professor Higgins and Julie Andrews playing Eliza Doolittle. This is my one thing when people say to me, like, if you could go back in time and see anything on stage, I would have loved to have seen Julie Andrews play as Eliza. She's perfect for that role. Don't get me wrong. I love Audrey Hepburn. But the fact that Julie Andrews didn't get to play this role on screen is a crime against humanity, and the only reason why she won an Oscar for Mary fucking Poppins, because everyone realized that was ridiculous.
Justice for Julie Andrews, who's maybe not quite as beautiful as Audrey Hepburn, but probably better in the fucking role. That's all I gotta say.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a much better singer. I mean, Audrey was dubbed, and even when, and we all heard her sing in Breakfast at Tiffany's. Fine for Holly Golightly with her little ukulele on the balcony, but not, that movie is problematic for a whole number of reasons. But, not to play Eliza, and the accent work and everything that went into it. I mean, Julie Andrews was brilliant. I've heard the recording a million times, and that was a travesty. And then finally, the Hope Diamond is donated to the Smithsonian Institution. Who do we steal that one from?
Unclear. Probably Africa.
Okay. All right.
But I will say that I grew up going to see the Hope Diamond, and everybody goes to see the Hope Diamond, and it's 65 years old at the Smithsonian Institution. You can still see it. It's still there.
The biggest song of the year, the enduring classic, Voler nel blu di pinto di blu by Domenico Modugno, maybe?
Modugno?
Later covered by Dean Martin. It's an Italian, swooner.
I was bummed that this was number one because number two was Dream by the Everly Brothers. And that song I do know. We say
great song. Biggest movie at the box office, South Pacific.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which I understand is an important work of its time. And, there wasn't many people who saying, like racism is bad. But now it just seems like, oh, my God, pull out the hammer and just hit the audience over the head. It's not subtle.
Yeah, I mean, I had to give up my dream of playing Bloody Mary. Not today.
No. Well, you don't get Bloody Mary. I don't get Tevye. It just, things happen. Best Picture Oscar of 1958 went to The Bridge on the River Kwai. On or over? I thought it was Bridge over, on the River Kwai?
It said on, but I don't know. But I don't know if it was like the Mandela effect where I was like, maybe we think that it's over.
I think it's that. I think it probably is The Bridge on the River Kwai, but it's just bridges go over. So it's like, you don't want a bridge on the river.
Somebody report back. I don't feel like looking it up. But I saw the same thing too. I was like, well, maybe that's, I really did. I was like, oh, maybe I just call it Bridge over the River Kwai, but I've never seen it, so I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Don't know where the River Kwai is. Don't know the bridge.
Somewhere in Asia, maybe?
Don't know the movie, actually. It's probably something I should see, but whatever.
But we didn't. We're not talking about it this time.
1958, folks.
It's kind
Here
of
we
boring,
go.
I gotta say, when I was putting this together.
Right? We live in very interesting times. I'll take boring.
I would like to live in precedented times.
Welcome to the Rewind Project, where Allie, Matt, and Eric take another look at your favorite milestone movies through the lens of our present day. Will it be a skip, rent, or buy? Stay tuned and find out.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Rewind Project. I'm Allie.
I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
And we are discussing Vertigo, not the condition, but the movie made in 1958. This was a movie that we are talking about, and I can't wait to get into it because it is an Alfred Hitchcock, you know that there's like 8,000 dissertations on what this movie is about and the symbols and the blah and the blah. So we're going to get into all that. This movie was a screenplay written by Alec Koppel and Samuel Taylor, based on the 1954 novel D'entre les mots. I speak Spanish, not French, by Pierre Boulez and Thomas, why do I get all these words? Narcejac.
I'm sure that's correct.
Y'all didn't hire me for my French pronunciation skills. And then directed, of course, by Alfred Hitchcock. So no notable achievements in the terms of any statues, but a lot of debate around the movie on lists and things. In 1989, I thought this was kind of cool. It was one of the first 25 films selected by the Library of Congress for preservation in the United States National Film Registry for being culturally, historically, or aesthetically significant. We talk about those films a lot, but this was one of the first.
And I actually saw a little thing. So I went down a big, huge YouTube rabbit hole.
You sure did. I watched two of the things that you said, and then I was like, and we're done here.
But there's so, like you said, Allie, there's so much out there. Mm-hmm. But one of them did show, like, when they picked it up, when the Library of Congress picked it up, here's what the film was starting to look like. And then here's what it looked like when they restored it.
Oh, cool.
And it's like, it's why they do this. And it was the whole thing that was taking place in the hotel room that was all lit up by that green neon light. And the green was just barely blue. It was like, you know. So if you hadn't seen a restored version of this movie, it just, a lot of it, you know, would have been like, what am I even watching? And it just looked shitty. So, you know, kudos to the Library of Congress for doing that. I think it's one of those things we don't really think about, but all those movies that were made on film, if you don't do the work to actually restore that film just corrodes. It's just not something that sticks around. So as someone who likes old movies, I just think it's cool.
That is cool. Because that was a really cool scene, you know, with the light and the tricks of the light. So good to know. Second, the film appears repeatedly in polls of best films by the American Film Institute, including a 2007 ranking as the 9th greatest American movie ever.
Sure.
I don't have a lot to say about that. I don't know if that's necessarily true.
But what's interesting to me is that this movie was like critically drubbed when it came out. I mean, all the critics like went after it with knives. Like very few people had anything to say about it. And as the years have gone on, it's just grown and grown and grown in stature. Like it was not even close to the top 10 in that first AFI list. And all of a sudden we put out the other one, you know, 10 years later, and it's up to number 9. And then there's this cool thing that Allie's about to share with us.
This is very cool. You know, I love a little controversy. So attracting significant scholarly attention, this movie replaced Citizen Kane as the greatest film ever made in the Sight and Sound Greatest Films of All Time in 2012, and then came in second in 2022. So it was like vaulted up there.
Okay, and I just have to say, quick little rabbit hole. On Max, formerly HBO Max, you can watch the movie that is now number 1 on Sight and Sound's list. It's a Belgian movie from 1977.
Absolutely not.
It's 3.5 hours long. It's about a housewife who turns tricks to make ends meet. And I watched an hour of this movie, and I swear to God, 80% of what I was watching was this woman rinsing the potatoes, boiling the potatoes, pouring the boiling water out of the potatoes, answering the door and taking her son's jacket, setting the table, taking a bath, like full nudity because it's like French and it's the 70s, you know, Belgian. And then at one point in the middle of this, like, just ode to housework, she answers the door and there's a strange man and she takes his coat and hangs it up and they leave and it fades. And then it comes back and they're leaving and she hands him his coat and he, very embarrassed, like, kind of hands her some money and she takes it very professionally and just wishes him a good day, and then goes and hides the money and then takes the little towel off the bed that was used for a little wet spot and puts it at the very bottom of the laundry basket, presumably so her son won't see it. That's it. For an hour, I watched that and a whole bunch of housework. Oh, and she also gets a letter from her sister in Canada who wants to report that it's snowing a lot. That's it. Like, that's it. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to watch another 2.5 hours of this. But I read that later on, the whole story is one of her clients gives her an orgasm for the very first time, and it apparently has an impact on her life. I didn't get that far. But that's the greatest movie ever made, according to Psych. Yeah. You know what?
It's literally the last frame is her having an orgasm.
Maybe, there are critics and there are critics. And apparently Sight and Sound made a really big deal about the fact that between this one and the last one, where Vertigo was number one, and this one, they really expanded their critics. They went global. They made sure that they had representation from all kinds of underrepresented communities. And what happened was this movie, Jean something, with her whole Belgian address, is like the title of the film. That's the movie. I watched it so you didn't have to. You're welcome.
Wow.
Boiling the fucking potatoes for an hour.
I mean, honestly, you said Belgian movie in the 70s and I was already out. Before you even said the runtime, I was like, nope and nope.
So anyway.
All right. Well, so you know what? Take our reporting with a big old grain of salt in your potatoes. I'm hyped. Okay, the plot. A former San Francisco police detective juggles wrestling his personal demons and becoming obsessed with the hauntingly beautiful woman he has been hired to trail, who may be deeply disturbed. Dun, dun, dun.
Swirly,
swirly, swirly, swirly, swirly, swirly. Now, you know that I love Twilight Zone. Everybody knows this. I love the Twilight Zone, especially Rod Serling. It's really the only one I recognize. Maybe the one in the 80s just because it was so wacky. But this were very much the opening of this and kind of the whole oof of this movie reminded me of Twilight Zone.
Oh, I was just going to say the opening was kind of bonkers. I was also, it's interesting that you said that it's been restored, because I was kind of shocked at how clean and crisp it looked. I was like, wow, did they redo this entire intro? Because it didn't, I mean, it looked like crystal clear on my TV, which this is a higher resolution than what it was actually probably done at originally. So I was kind of shocked.
Well, film is not, originally wasn't done with pixels at all. So, film was always really, really, so they just, they just did a very high resolution digital copy of the film.
It was clean.
I agree.
The intro, though, was kind of, I didn't sure if I was watching Twilight Zone or a Bond film or something. It was very weird.
Did you guys ever have those things as kids where you put the ballpoint pen in the thing and send it round and round and round and round and round? Yeah, it looked like that.
I love that shit. I wonder if I can get a spirograph on eBay. Probably. It's fun. All right, let's get into this cast. I only have 4 people listed because really they're the main characters, right? And I know at least for the top 2, we can chat for a long time about them. So let's start with James Stewart as John Scotty Ferguson. I have to say, I'm embarrassed to say this, by the end of this movie, I was slightly attracted to James Stewart. I don't know what it was, because his voice makes me want to punch a wall. So I don't know. When he started, I was like, oh, fucking James Stewart is in this? Like, oh, God, that voice. Like,
I don't know, Allie. I just think you like it when men get a little rough with you, because that's kind of when he turned into a big controlling asshole.
Well, I mean...
Maybe you kind of felt a little reaction to that, like, ooh, James.
I mean, this is the Rewind Project, not the counseling project, but... Yeah, it was funny because I read a lot of stuff about this. And that, Hitchcock, we'll talk about this, but Hitchcock kind of blamed James Stewart for the bad reception. And at first I was like, he is so miscast in this role. But then I don't know, I leaned in.
See, I feel about this like I feel about Tom Hanks in that Man Called Otto movie.
Oh, I read the book. I'm not watching that movie. Absolutely
I
not.
didn't see the movie either, but the whole idea is like, there's this old curmudgeon who lives next door and is kind of an asshole and everyone hates him. It's like, well, how do you get the audience to actually like this person? You cast Tom Hanks. So I think that at the end, when Scotty turns into this controlling, weird freak about, yes, I mean, it's like, you must wear these clothes. You have to have her hairstyle. You have to pin it at the back. I'm like, who are you, Jonathan Van Ness? Like, calm down. But all this kind of stuff, it's like you can only deal with it because it's Jimmy Stewart from It's a Wonderful Life, and gosh darn it, he's just so all-American. I mean, I think that's part of, the reason why they cast him. But yeah, Hitchcock was like, he was too old to be sexy, and therefore the movie failed, and it was all Jimmy Stewart's fault. And guess what? They never spoke again.
Yeah, and they were like besties. They were huge collaborators, like done a bunch of shit together. And
we're going to watch another Jimmy Stewart, Alfred Hitchcock movie before this year is over.
Yeah. And I don't blame him. If I were Jimmy Stewart, I'd be like, fuck you, Alfred Hitchcock, old asshole.
Well, Alfred Hitchcock was never going to cast him again. And yeah, Alfred Hitchcock looks like a toe. So, I mean, let's talk about who's sexy.
Right.
And a total asshole. I mean, treated all the women. I mean, I don't know if you saw that movie about the way that he treated Tippi Hedren.
No, but I know the stories for sure.
Awful. I mean, terrible. So like all the women who worked with him, he abused. So like, fuck Alfred Hitchcock. But genius. I mean, he's a genius. But yeah, I liked Jimmy Stewart for this movie. His voice does not make me want to hit things. I generally like him, but it is interesting when you get to see him play against type a little bit because he's a good actor. He can do more than aw shucks. But I think he was useful in this role because anyone else I would have hated.
Mm-hmm.
From the jump, yeah, you're right.
Maybe not Cary Grant, but but it had to be that kind of like you had to really like the persona to put up with all that asshole behavior towards the end.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily have to be sexy. Like, I don't think that's what this role needed. It was a very odd love story, but it was not one that you're sitting on the edge of your seat, like romantically. You want to know what the fuck is going on.
Yes, correct.
In this messed up relationship. So I don't know that sexiness or sex appeal for Jimmy Stewart really had anything to do with the role.
I think that the idea that she's in love with him does have to be there in order for the ending to work for me. I'm with Allie. I've always bring on the zaddies. That's my type anyway. So it's like, I bought it. I was fine with it. But if you'd had someone completely unappealing in this role, I mean, if it was Ernest Borgnine in Vertigo, then no. I mean, it just would be like, no, thank you. Like the whole ending would have just fallen apart.
Right,
so
or
no.
Mickey Rooney.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I it just was interesting, and I think that yes, I do think he did a good job with the transformation of being sort of genial and cool guy, but like kind of not sure what to do with his life to like absolute Svengali at the end. Wow.
Although he in one of these YouTube things that I was watching pointed out that he treated Midge like dirt from the beginning. We'll get to Midge, but I mean he was kind of an asshole from the jump in a lot of ways, but he's Jimmy Stewart, so aw shucks.
I mean, also, and hashtag 1957 when they made this movie. All right, moving on to Kim Novak as Judy Barton / Madeline Elster.
Okay.
Yeah, she didn't do anything for me either. Like,
yeah,
I kind of was bored by her. I wish that there was somebody
Hitchcock
else.
Loves an icy blonde.
He sure does. Wow.
And that's his thing. And he wants his women to be blank canvases so that you could, and even I thought Judy was, honestly, I'd rather have a beer with Judy than Madeline.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of, she's fun. She wears eyeshadow. She got a bold red lip. Like, I'm into it, Madeline was just this typical Hitchcock blank slate that you could just project anything onto because women were not people to Alfred Hitchcock. And so that's just one of those things that unfortunately.
Well, that's one of the weird things too about this movie being kind of a love story is I could not understand the fascination with Madeline because there's nothing there. Like she's literally, I guess maybe he just liked a helpless damsel. There's literally nothing going on there.
Yeah, the whole time he became obsessed with her, she's supposed to be under some kind of, trance that's induced by the ghost of her great grandmother. I'm like, that's not hot.
No.
Yeah.
And my issue too. Well, I mean, look, Kim Novak was not his first choice for this role. His first choice got pregnant, and so he had to kind of scramble. And I wonder. I didn't know Helen something or other. I didn't recognize her name. I don't know if she would.
I thought it was Vera Miles.
Oh yeah, you're right.
So Vera Miles was the sister in Psycho.
I've actually never seen Psycho.
What? Oh, really, really good. So
yeah, no, I know it's on my scroll of movies to see.
Yeah, so Janet Leigh, kind of plays the icy blonde, blank canvas, and then Vera Miles comes in halfway through to try to figure out what the hell's going on, and she's actually kind of interesting. So I would have, but at the same time, Madeline, the character, she just sits there. I mean, all Kim Novak had to do was look pretty, and she did.
She's a pretty gal.
Yeah, I'm not blaming Kim Novak in this. I feel that this is all director issues. Like, there's nothing. You know what I mean? Like, if a character isn't interesting on screen, because Kim Novak obviously played two different people. She played Madeline as a different person from Judy Barton, and they were two completely different characters. Which is obvious that she has some acting chops then, because they felt like two completely different characters.
Well, I noticed the really strong mid-Atlantic accent halfway through for Madeline, and then that completely went away for Judy. And I was like, you know what, Kim, good on you. But, so yeah, I mean, I actually think she redeemed herself when Judy showed up as an actor. But yeah, the whole thing about Madeline is like, do we believe in the obsession? It's like, well, Alfred Hitchcock would have absolutely been obsessed with Madeline Elster. I was not.
Yeah.
I mean, we're gonna. This is time for the Allie is super gullible corner. Is that I didn't realize that was Kim Novak as Judy until she started writing that confession letter.
Well, they do. I mean, she did look completely different. It was. I
was like, wait, is that Kim Novak? What?
Yeah. It was the hair. It was also the makeup, because I didn't realize how natural, quote unquote natural. It was not natural. There was a ton of makeup on that face, but I mean, how, neutral all the makeup was for Madeline. The platinum hair is certainly a look. But also just the clothes were tight and they kind of hugged her in all the right places. And, and she was kind of like a young shop girl as opposed to this, icon of glamour. Although I tell you what, when Kim Novak showed up in that restaurant for the first time in that green dress surrounded by all that red wallpaper, I was like, wow. I mean, she's gorgeous. She's beautiful. Yeah,
no, I didn't realize that. And then I was really, really fucking confused while she was writing that letter. I was like, I don't understand. And I had to pause it. Now, keep in mind at this point, I was not really paying the greatest attention in the world. So that might be part of it. But I definitely, totally was like gullible Alley. Burp, 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 over my head. All right, next up is Tom Helmore as, we find out later, the evil Gavin Elster.
Yeah. I have nothing to say about Tom Helmore. He was fine.
Sure.
Gavin Elster concocted about the stupidest conspiracy and plot I've ever heard of in my entire life. First of all, you don't know who this guy is. You haven't seen him since college. If you think he's a stand-up guy, what in the world makes you think he's going to commit adultery? And why would you hinge your entire murder plot on trying to seduce a lifelong bachelor who lives in San Francisco with Kim Novak? Do the math.
So dumb.
Gavin.
He's going to do her hair, not her.
Exactly. He's going to help her with her nails.
Right. It's going to be it's going to be like a bend and snap scenario.
But I mean, so much about it was dumb. It's like, you're going to mention this Spanish hacienda and, he's naturally going to know all about this Spanish village an hour south of town, and he will take you there. It's like, you're asking a lot of, and we're going to plan this whole murder to take place at the top of this tower. What on earth makes you think that her just dropping a couple of Spanish references from her dream is going to cause him to get her in the car and say, we're driving an hour south to this hacienda where there just happens to be a church tower? I mean, so dumb. Just the plot itself, when you think about it for a second, does not hang together.
I mean, I guess we have to blame the source material. No, this is a book that I am not going to read, just FYI. But and I'm sure that he changed some things, but I think the general sense was this weird And I was into it for a second, and then they started talking about fucking Carlotta for like hours and hours and hours, and I was over Carlotta. I didn't want to hear about fucking Carlotta anymore. And then it just came out of nowhere, and then it was like she didn't really die, and then the wife actually died, but it looked like her, and it was too much.
Even little things, like even if they had said, that Scotty and Gavin had been to this Spanish hacienda on a school trip at some point,
right.
if they'd mentioned that. And so of course that means Gavin knows that Scotty knows all about the Spanish hacienda. And if there had been a detail in her dream that could have only been there, and maybe it was her idea, but maybe if I go back there and I see it, I'll be able to figure something out. Oh, please take me, that would be at least something where I can see where the people who were conspiring to do all this, but I mean, they just depended so much on Scotty doing most of their heavy lifting.
So maybe this is me not paying enough attention, but I thought that was all the church that she originally goes to where Carlotta was originally buried.
No.
I thought that was like the church from the beginning of the movie.
No, that was just a church in San Francisco. No, they went an hour south to this Spanish village.
San Luis.
Oh, okay. So that's why it totally made sense to me.
No, that was just that church was just a church.
That was the mission. So like where they went an hour south is where quote unquote Carlotta was born or like brought to from Mexico. So yeah, no. And it was funny, though. I wish that I had watched this movie. I mean, I was just in San Francisco like 3 weeks ago. So I wish that I had watched this movie before I went to San Francisco because apparently you can walk do a little Vertigo movie trail.
Push your friend out the bell tower.
I would have absolutely pushed my friend. I mean, I didn't go with anybody, but, sorry, random stranger. We're in a fucking Vertigo. Swear to you, when she goes to the Mission Dolores, I walk down that street. Like, I recognize that street. And I was like, oh, that's cool.
There's this whole YouTube thing that I got into, which is like all about the plot holes in Vertigo and why they don't matter. And I'm like, yeah, it's not about the plot. It's not about the conspiracy theory. I mean, this isn't The Usual Suspects where that's actually really tight. You go back and watch the whole thing and you're like, oh, that totally makes sense. This was all about Jimmy Stewart's psychology. And so the plot was just kind of this thing that serves that. I get it. But a little effort, folks. I mean, I blame the screenwriter. A little bit of effort would have made the murder plot at least halfway feasible. Because you think about it for a second, and it's just made of wet tissue paper. It just falls apart so fucking fast.
So quick. So quick. All right, moving right along to poor Midge. Barbara Bel Geddes as Marjorie Midge Wood.
Okay, first of all, I'd say she's an amazing painter.
Yes.
That portrait she did of herself was A++.
And hilarious.
I thought it was funny as shit.
Yes.
I mean, I didn't love Midge. I'm going to put that out there. Like, I found her annoying, and I was like, why is she part of this plot? Like, I don't understand. But I did find the painting kind of hilarious. The person who did the painting of Midge as Carlotta, I think, was the art director on the movie or something. Cool. I mean, imagine that's a cool souvenir, right? I always think about
yes. Could you take that and like hang it in your house? I totally would.
I always think that about movies where there are paintings of the characters, and I wonder if they get to take them home because how cool is that?
And who else wants them? I mean,
right, exactly.
Really.
And you have like an actual artist making a painting of you. I think that's fucking cool.
No, I liked Midge. From the first scene, I was kind of like, okay, who's this? Like, I know she's not Kim Novak, so this is going to be some other side chick. But when she said, it's a brassiere, Scotty, you know all about those. You're a big boy now. I don't know. I thought she had a little bit of attitude. I thought she was fun. I was into Midge. I just, it's too bad she was mooning over this, jerk who treated her so badly.
What was their Did we ever find out the connection between?
They all went to school together.
Oh, they went to school together.
And Gavin. She knew who Gavin was from school.
So he didn't have any friends other than Midge?
I mean,
probably some cops who no longer spoke to him because now he's this pussy who killed their friend.
I guess so. To be fair, I don't love open spaces at the tops of things. Like, I had to force myself. This is a very privileged thing to say, but I had to force myself at the top of the Eiffel Tower to go out and take a photo because I was like, when else am I going to be standing at the top of the Eiffel Tower? I don't like open heights very much. So. Well,
that's agoraphobia and acrophobia combined.
Yes, I don't know. I don't know what the word is. There's a word for it.
Agagrophobia.
Agagrophobia. So I'm sure somebody will listen to this and tell me the right answer.
No, but Matt, I got your text when you were watching this movie and you're like, justice for Midge. I'm like, Midge got her justice, okay? Midge dodged a bullet.
You're right there, because Scotty ends up being just a weirdo at the end of this. Like the obsession with Madeline just to me just makes absolutely no sense. And Midge, you can do better. So hopefully you've moved on and you found somebody that appreciates your
Well, listen, Midge moved to Dallas and married Jock Ewing, and she's fine.
Is Dallas available streaming? I've never seen it.
Never seen Dallas.
I'm a little too young for Dallas. Like it just wasn't in my in my purview. But I feel like I would love it now.
Yeah, I mean, well, of course, you do be warned about the whole season that ends up being a dream. You might as well just skip it.
Okay.
Because they killed off Bobby.
Right.
Patrick Duffy was so cute. Oh, my God.
He's so cute.
Oh, he's so cute. And they killed him off, and he was like, I'm leaving. And then when they wanted him back, he was like, I'd love to come back, but you I was real definitive when I left. So you killed me, like in a way that you cannot come back from. And so she shows up in the shower at the end of the season, and everyone's like, dun, dun, dun. And then the next season starts, and Pam Ewing had a very long, involved dream. Apparently, she was asleep for 23 hours because that's how long a television season was back in the day, and had a very involved dream about lots and lots of things going on, most of which she wasn't in the scene. So, okay, that makes sense. So dumb. But Who Shot JR was like the best television cliffhanger of all time. And literally everyone was talking about it the entire summer. I'm showing my age, but it was fun.
All right, I got to find out. Hopefully it's streaming somewhere because I love a soap like that. So I'm sure that I would love it.
And Barbara Bel Geddes is great as Miss Ellie. Although when she died, they decided not to kill off Miss Ellie and they replaced her with Donna Reed.
Huh.
Yes. So
that's a choice.
Jimmy Stewart co-stars got to be.
Yeah, exactly. Well, justice for Donna Reed in that movie too. So, all right. So there's a lot of themes in this movie. Everything that I read or watched or whatever talked about the different themes. So I sort of came to 4. And I think that we could talk a little bit about all of these. Obviously, the first one is that what do we think this movie is about? I think the first one is definitely obsession, obviously.
Yes.
Because he's obsessed with her. Well, and it's one of those things. It's one of those movies where, like, they know each other for literally 3 minutes and they're madly in love, which drives me up a fucking wall. Drives me up a wall in 2023. Drives me up a wall in 1958. Mm-hmm. So it's hard for me to understand his obsession because he knew her for like a second. I don't know. But he does a good job. I think Jimmy Stewart does a good job of kind of turning that corner. And then when he meets Judy and instinctively knows maybe not that it's Madeline, but like pretty close to, and he goes through that sort of like you need to make yourself over to look like her. Mm-hmm.
Now, if I thought that Scotty suspected that Judy was actually Madeline and was trying to get her to do all that to see how she would react, that would be one thing. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, he thought Judy was a completely different person and was just being an obsessive dick. And what my understanding was, it wasn't until he saw the necklace that he realized that they were actually the same person.
I think you're completely right on that. And that's why this movie just completely falls apart for me, because he sees her for a second in the street and then just like follows her home. And she looked completely different on the street. Like, if you put the two together, you probably would not have realized that they were the same person. Makeup was completely different stuff, so the bone structure looked different and everything. Like, and Allie didn't realize it was the same person.
I sure didn't.
Yeah. And at the same time, I've seen Allie as a blonde. I've seen Allie as a brunette. I've seen Allie with makeup and without. And I would hope that if I suddenly saw, brunette Allie with makeup walking down the street, I would recognize her as the same person. I would hope.
Maybe, I don't know. That whole thing just seemed really weird. And then just to start showing up at her place and knocking on the door and forcing his way in, essentially. I don't care how polite it was. He forced his way into a woman's apartment. That is wrong.
Yes.
That's straight up wrong.
And at first I was like, why are you letting him in, strange brunette lady? And then I was like, oh, well, she knows who it is. So that's why she can. Listen, if he's going to take off every stitch of clothing she owns and put her into bed after she fell in the San Francisco Bay, maybe he's not although who knows what transpired during that scene break.
I get that he wanted to keep her warm, but like, did he want to keep her warm? I don't know. I don't know. She looked pretty cozy in that bed. Okay, the next theme that I pulled out was deception. A little bit less, but still, I think a fairly heightened theme.
Yeah, one of the YouTube things I watched said that every time green shows up, that's the lie color, and so
there was a lot of green.
There was a lot of green. So the frame, her car, and that weird route that she took,
that dress, the neon light,
the dress. When she first showed up as Judy and she's dressed in green from head to toe, the green neon light in the apartment. It's like all this is being lied to. It's like there was this interesting kind of through line through all of that with green. Well,
green is also kind of the color of jealousy too. So, and he was certainly jealous of something. I don't know, jealous of Judy looking like Madeline. And then the third one, which you talked a little bit about, is male aggression and control.
Well, yeah, Scotty and Gavin. I mean, Gavin's a monster.
Yes.
Gavin just wanted that sweet, sweet shipyard money. He wanted to just be like, bye.
Gallivanting all around Europe.
So does he end up selling the shipyard so he has the cash and just, or does he hire somebody else to run it and move? Because he was supposed to be controlling the West Coast and like running the business for her.
He inherited his wife's money and he took off to Europe.
Like,
he didn't give a shit.
Yeah. I mean, Matt, you could write Vertigo Part 2 all about the shipyard. Maybe somebody falls off a ship because they have vertigo. I don't know. We'll workshop it.
It might have been more interesting to write the story about the shipyard.
And then last is a theme that I saw in, I think, one of the YouTube things that you say, Eric, was that this could this all be a dream? Could the beginning be real where he, the policeman dies and he kind of, finds out he has vertigo, and then everything else after that a dream?
What if he never left the hospital and everything after he gets into the hospital is a dream?
That would make before he meets Judy.
Yeah, before he meets Judy.
Honestly, yeah. If the scene in the bell tower, with the nun ringing the bell behind him, had all of a sudden just gone back to he's sitting in the hospital like drooling in his chair, I would have been like, oh, all right, okay. I mean, I would have listened. I went with everything else in this movie. I would have gone with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be a stretch for me too, I don't think. Because I mean he was.
And then you would have to go, oh my God, Madeline probably did really die.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because you're not introduced to Madeline as Judy. Judy is Madeline.
Like his mind is making up this story that she's not dead.
Yeah.
I think I like that ending better.
I mean, get it together, Hitchcock. Yeah, he can't call us, sadly, but
you wouldn't want to take his call.
No, I definitely would not want to take his call. But also, I can fight back a little bit better than some other women. All right, let's talk about this damn spiral. That everything I read about was about the spiral. So Hitchcock popularized the dolly zoom in this film, which means that this is the vertigo effect, which is the dolly out. So the dolly is going out, but the camera's zooming in. So you're getting that sort of like very off balance picture. And it really was.
It's what they used in Jaws when the shark first hit and then you're on Roy Scheider's face and it just, the beach seems to be going behind him, but he's all, oh.
What was that? It was a good reenactment. Good reenactment.
That's great podcasting right there, folks. Learn from me.
I felt the shark. But I mean, this was really the first film that had it. Obviously, it's been in a lot of other films. Your thoughts, kind of talking about like the spirals at the beginning. And again, I watched one of those YouTube videos. They were talking about like that a circle could be, one thing, but a spiral has, definition and can really, whatever. I don't know.
Well, and it's that idea of kind of feeling dizzy, and that's what vertigo feels like. But it was also, the hairstyle, right? Was this kind of spiral bun, and then like the when they went to the Muir Woods and they saw the tree and it's all like all the rings of the tree and it's a big spiral, and I mean, it's just all these, it's just this again, it's this theme that Hitchcock just picked up on. Not only that, but the way she was driving around San Francisco,
like this way,
2 rights and a left, and then 2 lefts and a right, and then 2 rights and a left, and it's like that is the most convoluted route anybody would take to get anywhere. It's true. We saw like 6 minutes of James Stewart driving a car. It was not the most exciting filmatic sequence. It was a far cry from the French Connection. I'll just say that in terms of like scenes with cars. But it was this interesting subliminal thing. Like they're always going downhill and they seem to be kind of going down this, and so it's just it's a cool symbolic thing, better than boiling potatoes for an hour.
Well, speaking of San Francisco, I thought it was interesting to shoot this movie in San Francisco. It's, I don't feel like there were a lot of movies in the 1950s set in San Francisco. And I sort of recognize it right away when you look out and you see out of Midge's very enviable apartment, those like floor to ceiling windows with that fucking view. Amazing. It's probably worth about $15 million now.
Yep.
And Hitchcock had said he chose San Francisco because of kind of the hilly nature and that relationship to the feeling of vertigo when you're going up and down. And as somebody who just went there, and I would like go for a walk, and I mean, there'd be literally out, you see it and the hill is in front of you, and you're like, oh, motherfucker, that's where the bus stop is. And you kind of walk up that hill.
Yeah, it looks like Inception. It looks like the whole town just like goes at a right angle and just goes straight up. Yeah. Hey, have you guys ever seen the PBS miniseries version of Tales of the City? Laura Linney and Olympia Dukakis. So the whole opening of that, you get like half of Laura Linney's face, and then all of a sudden it opens up to the apartment where the hotel where she's staying when she's first visiting, and they totally like it. It's not even subtle how much they're ripping off Vertigo at the beginning of that miniseries. They do the same shots, the same, just for a little bit, but just to be like, it's San Francisco and it's trippy and it's weird. And so they just kind of, use some of that stuff. As soon as I started watching this, I'm like, Hitchcock ripped this off from somewhere. And then I realized I was being reminded of this miniseries from the 1990s, and it was probably the other way around.
Probs the other way around. I do love San Francisco, though. So I was excited to see it. And they really did shoot it in San Francisco. Some of it was a movie set, only maybe like 16 days of the shoot, but everything else was shot on location in the Muir Woods, at the Mission, in the city. I
used to have this T-shirt that was a Tennessee Williams quote, and it said, "America only has 3 cities, New York, New Orleans, and San Francisco. Everything else is Cleveland." And I was like, that's...
I mean, he's not wrong. I mean,
American cities have this kind of feeling to them, and it's not bad. But San Francisco really has character. I mean, it is an interesting town, as is New Orleans. Two very, very interesting, a lot of sense of place. So I love the fact that this is in San Francisco. And if it wasn't so fucking expensive, this movie is kind of like the beginning. I was like, I want to live in San Francisco. It's so cool.
It is. It is definitely in a state of transition. Let's put it that way. Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah. Downtown is not great these days. So it was interesting. Like every store, no matter what it was, whether it was the Blue Bottle or the Apple store, had like their own security guard. So
wow.
Yeah, like everything's locked up tight at the stores. Yeah. Hopefully I know that they're working on getting people the resources that they need. But yeah.
Yes.
Because I used to think the same way, Eric. And then this trip, I was like, I'm going to give it a few years.
Well, I haven't been in a while.
Yeah.
But
I hadn't been in probably 12 years. So, but I do love it.
I go to New Orleans every year, though. So I'm cool with Tennessee.
All right. One other thing I thought about San Francisco is I felt like it gave it a little bit of a richer history, just because there is, all of the story of everybody moving from Mexico, and obviously the gold rush, and the interesting, kind of what you said before. Like, it does have a sense of place. It does have a pretty cool history. There's a lot of shit that happened in San Francisco, throughout the year. So I thought that helped the storyline a little bit.
And I thought the Carlotta story was cool. I'm upset that it ended up meaning nothing.
Zero. No. Literally zero.
Just big old red herring. Yeah. But I thought it was interesting until it meant nothing.
Communism was just a red herring. So there was an alternative ending to this movie, and I'm going to read it to you, and I want to get your thoughts on if they should have kept it or not. So a coda to the film was shot that showed Midge at her apartment listening to a radio report. Very cool, voiced by San Francisco TV reporter Dave McElhatton, describing the pursuit of Gavin Elster across Europe. Midge switches off the radio when Scotty enters the room. Then they share a drink and look out of the window in silence. And that's the end of the movie. With the alternate.
Run, Midge, run. Run.
Okay, but is that after Judy falls out of the bell tower? Or is
yes.
that... So it's added on, okay.
Like at the very end.
Which is probably what a coda to the film actually means, if Matt actually was paying more attention. I hate that.
Do you?
I do. I hate it, because I kind of feel like the more interesting thing here is like the nun just watched this girl fall out of the bell tower, and like, is he going to be charged with murder now? Like, what happens to Scotty? I kind of feel like, I mean, that's 2 killings where he was present, that a woman falls out of a bell tower. I don't know. Looking towards Scotty's actually doesn't like women and likes to push them out of high up places. So,
Eric, your thoughts?
I mean, run, Midge, run. But also, when I read this in your outline, Allie, I didn't even finish it. Where I was like, that sounds like a Hays Code. Like, evildoers must be punished. And that's the only reason it's there. I think, frankly, it's more interesting if somehow, because Gavin's a side character anyway, and we don't really care about him. It's not about him.
Right.
I think it's kind of interesting that he got away with it.
He sure did, like 100%.
Because some people get away with murder, and he 100% did. She did not. And that's the other thing. It's like, we can talk about what an asshole he is, and he is in that whole second half of the movie. She is an accessory to murder. She got paid so that some guy could kill his wife, and she went along with it. So she is not exactly a candidate for sainthood herself. Just putting that out there. This is not a movie about good people, but I thought it was kind of interesting that it's like, we don't hear from Gavin again. It's not about him, and he got away with murder, and that's just like, ooh.
Well, apparently they found this footage in 1983, and it was on the Laserdisc release, LOL, and DVD and Blu-ray. So you apparently can watch this alternative ending if you'd like to these days. So.
Also, Midge needs to get on with her life. Like, that's not, please do not. And, staring out the window in silence with your formerly insane, barely better boyfriend, not a happy ending for Midge.
And stay away from high places because you never know what'll happen.
Exactly. I would stand next to a window next to him. He'd push you out.
That's what I'm saying. So, you guys ready for some fun facts?
Always.
I don't know how fun they are, but they are facts. We talked about this, but Hitchcock blamed Jimmy Stewart. They never worked together again. It's actually kind of a sad ending to this movie. Bernard Herrmann's score is largely inspired by Richard Wagner's Tristan und Isolde, which, like this movie, is also about doomed love, which I thought was pretty cool.
Everyone was like rhapsodizing about this score, like the most lush, beautiful film score ever made, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I liked it. I mean, it had a trippy little theme song. It was cool.
It was pretty, but it was too much in some of the scenes. Like, it was just like over embellishing the scenes and like forcing you to feel love or a romance that just was not there. Like, there was just really no chemistry between Stewart and Novak, I didn't think, which was another thing that just made the obsession seem even more preposterous to me. And it was too much swelling.
Too much swelling. That's the name of your memoir.
Too much swelling. The Matt Graff story.
Okay, in the scene where James Stewart's Scotty sees Kim Novak's Madeline in Ernie's restaurant, a blonde lady dressed in the exact same gray outfit with which Scotty transformed Judy later in the film passes right between them as sort of a clever subliminal message used by Hitchcock.
That's cool. I did notice that there was kind of another thing where two green cars that looked exactly the same were going in opposite directions at one point, and I didn't know as the viewer which one to follow. Apparently, Jimmy Stewart was not confused about that, but it was one of those things like, this could be going in two different ways. I mean, it just kind of, I noticed it, and it was like, well, that's sloppy filmmaking, and I was like, no. Hitchcock doesn't do sloppy filmmaking. There was probably something to it.
No, it was all very, very planned out. And I saw it. I didn't put it here, but, Hitchcock always makes an appearance in his movies.
Yes.
And I forget where. I think he was in Ernie's, but I did not write that down.
No, he was on the street. He was like just walking across right before Jimmy Stewart entered from the other side. Oh. He was just walking around, just walking on the street.
That's not as fun. I thought this was cool too. Hitchcock frequently dined at Ernie's, which is the restaurant that literally the only restaurant in San Francisco. They don't go anywhere else. And he enjoyed it so much that he cast the restaurant's maitre d' and bartender in Vertigo, and they were flown to Hollywood for filming on the set.
So was the set actually...
That was not the real restaurant.
Okay, so I was gonna say, because otherwise that restaurant is amazing.
Yeah.
Like that rich red.
I think that's real though.
Yeah,
I mean, they
that's what
the
restaurant
made the set
like.
based on what the restaurant used to look like. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And it was open until like 1989, so it had last.
So why doesn't everyone who eats there like dress in a black dress with Kelly Green accents? Because that's like clearly the only thing to wear.
Well, I mean, when you go to the only restaurant in San Francisco, you're going to wear the only thing to wear to that one restaurant. Literally, by the third time they were there, I was like, "There are no fun." I was just in San Francisco. I know that there are a million restaurants in San Francisco. Like, can we go somewhere else? Okay, guys, game time. Okay, this game is called Pick a Phobia. So what you're going to do is you're going to pick a phobia, and the more ridiculous, the better. And, like blanket apology if you suffer from any of the phobias we're going to talk about, et cetera, et cetera. And craft a movie around it. Cast as needed, screenwriter, director, pretty open to what that is. So, Eric, I'm going to start with you.
Okay, well, I just Googled weird phobias, and the first one that I found was hippopotamonstrousesquipedaliophobia, which is the unreasonable fear of long words. And so I was like, okay, that's funny. And, you'll have a hard time fitting that on the movie poster, but we'll go with it. So, yeah, I just pictured this, very Tony kind of institution of higher learning, some grad school, in linguistics or something. And you've got Tom Hiddleston as this dashing professor, because, of course, I just think he's yummy. And he just rattles off these long words like nobody's business. But Melissa McCarthy is like, hopelessly in love with him, but just, she needs to learn how to say all these long words in order to impress him, but she just can't. So, of course, this has to be directed by Ben Falcone, because nobody gets funny performances from Melissa McCarthy quite like Ben does. So, yeah. Hippopotamonstrousesquipedaliophobia coming soon to a theater near you.
I can't wait. We'll call it hippos.
If you can't say the name of the movie, you can't get a ticket.
You can't get a ticket. That's right. That's a good litmus test. Okay, Matt, what's your phobia?
My phobia is omphallophobia. OMPHALOPHOBIA. It's the fear of belly buttons.
Oh, belly buttons are weird.
I did the same search that Eric did, and this popped up, and I'm like, that is amazing. So it's the fear of your own belly button and the fear of other people's belly buttons. It's just like there's just something about that body part that freaks you out.
Do these phobics make a distinction between innie and outies?
It didn't say.
Because I will say, as a child, outie belly buttons used to freak me out.
Yes, they're a little weirder. Like you got that balloon knot sitting on the outside. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do these people have sex? Like, do they just cover that part up?
I don't know. There's so many complications.
Oh, so I have many questions.
So my story is going to be based on a fashion designer that's struggling to make it as she battles her fear about belly buttons while trying to design a line of swimsuits. It's kind of an allegory for body image, and like it's I think it all works on many levels. Wow! So my fashion designer is going to be Selena Gomez. I have been watching Only Murders in the Building, and I absolutely love her in that show. So, and then the opposition or her mentor, who is also the angry person, is actually going to be Jennifer Aniston, because I like her in mean roles. I think she could actually do kind of The Devil Wears Prada kind of role there. I think she'd be really good in that. It's going to be written by Tina Fey and then directed by Elizabeth Banks. I don't know if you guys saw Cocaine Bear.
No, I need to watch it. Maybe I'll watch that today.
Fucking hilarious. Just over the top, ridiculous, so much fun. And she did a great job with that, so.
She also directed one of the Pitch Perfect movies, which none of them were as good as the first one, but I mean, they were all silly, and she just definitely knows her way around comedy.
And the last Charlie's Angels movie, which got panned, she did a really good job with, I thought. I thought it was actually a good movie. So
okay.
All right. Awesome.
I'm all about badass chicks with guns. I mean, I will watch that. So
why not? Okay, so my phobia is navophobia, which is the fear of boats and cruise ships. Which honestly, everybody should fear cruise ships because they're hell on earth. But that's neither here nor there. So
walking petri dishes of disease as well.
Disgusting. I mean, so I also kind of went in a similar vein. Melissa McCarthy is also featured in my movie. So she is afraid of boats, but she lives in San Diego, and so it's a real problem for her. And her best friend Rose Byrne, I got the two of them together, we're reuniting from Bridesmaids and Spy and other things that they've been in together, like is over it. Like she's like, she wants to go on a cruise, and like she wants to go with her best friend, and her best friend has this like stupid fear of boats. So Rose Byrne tricks Melissa McCarthy to get on the boat. Somehow we'll workshop that. And then it's basically like we're getting over this fear on this ridiculous cruise ship. So it's basically like Barb and Star, but like on a cruise ship. There'll be a lot of like dance numbers and ridiculously hot men. I'm sure John Hamm will make an appearance. But
Chris Hemsworth as a lifeguard.
Chris Hemsworth.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of opportunities. You know, there are plentiful opportunities for hot men with no shirts on in this movie. I think it's got to be a Jay Roach project, and Melissa and Ben will have written this movie as well. So
see, this is why I love Allie. She gives people what they want.
I mean, I know. I instinctively know.
Lots of hot men without shirts, and we're done. Like it's the runaway hit of the summer. Did you all see that little clip? By the way, it's a little rabbit hole, and where the cast of the female Ghostbusters were on the Graham Norton show, and they were all talking about Chris Hemsworth and how annoying it is that not only is he gorgeous, he's also really, really nice and really, really funny. And all of a sudden, Melissa McCarthy was kind of halfway over it. And she was getting to know him, and it's like, actually, I should give him a chance, and da-da-da-da. And they were talking about music, and he was trying to describe this song, and she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, well, and he sang a few bars of it. And she's like, and he sounded like a songbird.
Oh my gosh.
And suddenly, before I could even stop myself, this deep guttural voice came from within me. Shut up! You cannot have one more thing that makes you... I love her so much.
She's the best. And I love Graham Norton. I love that show.
Yes, and would love to get with Chris Hemsworth. Just putting it out there.
Yes, I mean, I feel like that goes without saying for all of us. We won't speak the name. Okay, so we are moving into Skip, Read, and Buy. Skip, Read, and Buy. If you are just tuning in for the first time, skip means I wish I had never seen it. I actually have vertigo. Read means it was all right. Like I was kind of prone on my couch, so I felt all right. And then Buy means I went to the top of that fucking bell tower, and I would do it again and again and again. So. Reverse order, Matt, where are you for this movie?
Again, listeners, I am not a cinephile, so maybe take what I say with a grain of salt. I'd skip this movie. I think there's better Hitchcock films out there. This was kind of a slog, and I don't believe the storyline, so I did not enjoy it. There are definitely some great things about movie making in this. Like the whole spiral thing we talked about, that's really cool now that I think about it. It still doesn't make the movie enjoyable. So I would say skip. Okay,
strong skip. Eric.
I'm kind of going in the opposite direction. I said this to Allie beforehand. I actually own this movie, not because it's the greatest masterpiece of all time. I think I purchased a bunch of Hitchcock movies for $15. And so I was like, sure, and Vertigo is in there. I'm like, okay. So I owned it. So when it was time to watch it, I just fired it up and I already had it. So I think I'm going a rent with a buy rising on this one. I enjoyed the twist. I thought the twist was cool. And then all the other stuff, the little subliminal tricks that Hitchcock is playing throughout. I tell you, that moment where they're kissing each other in the green hotel room and the camera pans all the way around them and all of a sudden we're at the top of the bell tower. And then we're all of a sudden back in the apartment. I'm like, that was fucking cool. Like a lot of things that were, not able to be done with computers back then, that they did really, really well. And there was just, the psychology of it I thought was cool, even if this is the stupidest murder plot ever devised in film for all time. I tend to agree a little bit with that YouTube guy. It's like, yeah, it's dumb, but it kind of doesn't matter because this is about something else. So I'm right in the middle between rent and buy. I'm glad I own it, and I'm okay with owning it. It's okay. I tend to agree with Matt. There are other Hitchcock films out there that, I might enjoy personally a little bit more, but I cannot deny that this is a great movie.
Yeah. I would say that I'm in between a skip and a rent. I didn't love it. I picked it, obviously, and I thought I was excited to watch it just because I had heard so much about it, but I was bored. I wasn't really paying attention. I don't know. You see me deciding in real time. I'm deciding in real time. I think I'm a skip. I think I'm a skip on this one. I can watch other Hitchcock movies, and it's kind of disappointing. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So I don't know what I thought it was going to be, so I can't answer that question, but that didn't satisfy. That didn't satisfy me. So there you have it. Vertigo. It's not all we got to say about Vertigo.
Okay.
In 2 weeks, we are going to answer the perennial question, do gentlemen prefer blondes?
Well, it's a beautiful story about two girls on a boat, so I really think it's kind of picking up where Allie dropped us off.
Bourbon style.
That's bourbon style. Right. No Chris Hemsworth, though, in 1953. So, unfortunately. All right. Well, this has been The Rewind Project. I'm Allie.
I'm Eric.
I'm Matt.
Be kind. Rewind.
You've been listening to The Rewind Project. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Radio Public, and Google Play. Please subscribe and rate us. It helps a lot. We love your comments and questions. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and via our new phone number at 202-618-2402. Thanks for listening. Be kind. Rewind.